Have your pieces of clay that's sitting here and a rolling pin. A rolling pin is what's going to help you make that flat sheet of clay, kind of like you would roll out pizza dough or cookies or something like that. If anybody's ever made like sugar cookies, this is similar. The suggestion that I have for you is to stand up because you have more leverage when you're standing. You have a lot more power, and you're going to kind of start rolling this out. I would start from, you need to start kind of from the center, and as you move your way out, you'll see you kind of need to stop. If you don't stop, you're going to end up going like this, and then you have like this weird thin piece that's not going to help you because it's going to get too fragile and brittle. Plus, what do we talk about in clay from forever and ever? What I always say about clay is that it has to be what? Even in consistent walls all the way through. So if this is really thin and this is thicker, that's not even thickness, consistent thickness all the way through. So that's not going to work. You have to release pressure when you get to the edge. So starting from that center and working your way out. Now you need to kind of work your way out in a circular pattern if you are going to try and cover something that's round. This is the same way you will roll out if you do a slab container to get your pieces. But you want to look for, again, that consistent thickness all the way through. And I work kind of on one side, and I'm going to flip it over. I'm just going to flip my whole canvas because you have to work on that canvas. So I'm going to flip it over. So now I have this thick part here that I'm kind of going to work on too, okay? If you don't work from the center out, you're not going to be able to, like, it won't be even because it's going to be a lot harder because you're trying to work from one side and push the whole thing over as opposed to only pushing half. It's a little less force that you need. So I'm just rolling this out so it's the same thickness all the way through. Okay? And notice I'm releasing pressure when I get to the edge so I don't smash it too thin. So if you've ever made cookies before, you don't want a cookie that's thick and then super thin on the one because then they don't bake at the same rate. It's a good workout. You kind of want to aim for the thickness between, I don't know, like a 1/4 to a 1/2 inch.
Action.
Thanks. Okay, so whenever you have your piece rolled out and you've already made your template paper will look something like this when you first make it. You're going to have like the outside shape. You're making something that's like this, okay? Think about all the pieces that are going to need to make this, right? The side pieces, the bottom piece, the top piece, and then you'll also need side pieces. So you might need to get another piece of paper and then create your side pieces. Now, the way this gets put together, if there's curves and things like that that are a little bit more tricky, this is going to sit on the outside, or it's going to curve, and so I don't know exactly how much. I can't calculate that curve of this. I don't know what the length of that curve is. I mean, I'm sure there's a math way to kind of calculate that, but I don't really want to do that. What I want to do is I want to just cut extra for my sides so that when I have it on here, I'll set it on there, and whatever is left, I can mark it and cut it, and I know that I have enough. I'd rather have extra than not enough. So you just want to make sure that you have a little extra if you're doing something with like curves that you can't calculate the distance. So then once you have that, you'll cut them out. So then you'll end up with, and I like to label them so you know sides, top, bottom, and then your side piece. So once you have those, then this is where you start kind of tracing out your pieces. For the purposes of this demonstration, I have this one done, and you can see it kind of all would go together. However, what I'm going to do for this demonstration is just a basic cube, so that you guys can see how a basic cube would fit together, so that way you can do your own variations on that. So I have this shape here that I've cut out. It's just lined paper. I've cut out a square, and I've used a ruler because rulers are fantastic tools that we have at our disposal that measure things and they make straight lines. This is your template. You're going to use it to help you. I use it paired with a ruler because I think it's easier that way. But if you just hand cut these, you're going to find that they don't really fit together really great, and then your piece isn't as nice and clean and complete, or nice and clean and sharp edges such as this, because you didn't take the time to use a ruler. So I highly suggest it. If you are creating a cube, just a simple cube, same dimensions on all the sides, in order to create that template, I'm gonna break this down. If you know how to do this, feel free to skip ahead. But I know that my requirements are somewhere between 3 inches and 6 inches. So I like to work smarter, not harder, and use the corner of my paper. And then I will measure, like, let's just say somewhere between there. I'm just gonna pick 4. As my dimension. So I'm going to measure, there's 4 inches, and then I'm going to come down here and do the same measurement, 4 inches. That will give me this line here. So then if I use that, I want to figure out where 4 inches is there, and then the same thing, because again, it's a cube, so it's the same on all the sides. And I'm just going to make one template and use it 6 different times in order to make all the sides of the cube. All right, and then you just use scissors to cut out this square template. So whenever you're doing this and I'm tracing these or cutting these, I still use a ruler just because I think, like I said, I think it makes the job easier on me. So I just kind of line this up, and I'm going to make this is going to be the line for all of them. I want to see if we can get as many as I can to fit in on this one row. So I use this template, but I also use my ruler. And actually, sometimes if you feel like you're not sure if it's all going to fit, like I know that I've made a big amount of clay here and I know that it's going to fit. But if you're not sure, you can always just lightly draw the lines. And if it fits, then cut them out. And if it doesn't fit, it's easy to smooth those lines back out and redraw them or recut or whatever you're gonna need to do. I'm gonna try and fit as many as I can right on here. Okay, and so you have 2 options. You can either roll out your big slab and then kind of fold this over it and kind of wrap it up in plastic, loosely wrap it up in plastic, and then the next day you come to class, get it back out, and it'll be leather hard, and then you'll be doing all of this on a piece of clay that's already leather hard. So I'm going to continue on with this, and once I have them all the way on, then I'll go through and cut them all out. I'm sorry, say that again?
Do you want it, is it easier to do if it's leather hard already, or?
I find it easier to do, but sometimes people have a hard time storing that, and they don't want to, they have difficult time like wrapping it up to store it, so they don't want to do it that way, and that's okay. It doesn't bother me either way. If you do it this way, what you'll want to do, somebody give me some paper towels. So if you want to do it this way, we'll just say I cut all these out. If you wanted to do it while it's still in this like plastic state clay and use your templates to cut them out, and you want to do this first and then you're going to wait till it gets leather hard till you put it together, you can take some paper towels that are dry and put them in your bucket, and these paper towels will kind of help collect the moisture from the clay, and then it'll be leather hard. But this only works if your bucket's clear of other clay and other things, because this needs to sit flat in your bucket. Does that make sense? So this is a way, I wanted to show you this, because this is a way that you can stack these up, and those paper towels should pull out some of that moisture. It might not pull it out exactly in 24 hours. If it's a weekend, it works like really well. It does work pretty good though, even if it's just over one day. So then you can do that and then wait till the next day to get them out when it's leather hard. Okay, so whenever you have waited till your pieces are leather hard, whether you rolled it out, then waited and cut them out, or whether you cut them out and then put paper towels between them and then waited till they were leather hard, they're now ready to assemble and put together. The best way to put all of your pieces together is actually bevel all of the edges so that they all go together. And so in order to do this, this is the way I do it. I kind of hold this in my hand like this. I'm right-handed and I hold my thumb down here to support it, and I'm only cutting off this like little edge, just the little corner of it. And clay's pretty lenient, so if it's not perfect, it's probably okay. As long as what you don't want to do is you don't want to cut off any length on the bottom part of this. You'd only want to cut off the corner on the top. So I just go through and cut all of the pieces just like this before I get started with anything. Students in the class, you'll use this edge beveler tool instead of doing it by hand. We have this tool in the classroom, and you use the short side, and you'll just hold your slab like this and the tool like this, and you're just gonna push this across the tabletop towards your thumb, and it'll automatically create that beveled edge for you. It's a little easier than the one at home, but not the one at home isn't possible, and that's the way I used to do it before I bought this tool a couple years ago. I've cut them all off and they're all beveled. So with a square like this, they're all gonna fit together, because if you don't do this and you have these pieces, if you have a piece that isn't beveled and you stack this on top of this and it fits great, and then you take your next piece and stack it on, it'll be too long, right? And then this one will be too long, and this one will be even way too long. So that little edge that's in the bottom there, you don't want to have to like recut a line to make that fit. It actually doesn't work as well. And this is also why, see how these are floppy and you're trying to attach these on there together? This isn't going to create straight walls for you. So see how that's like kind of bended and flop? That's why we wait until it's leather hard. So now look at the difference. If I sit and stack this up, this is going to stay in a straight, flat, wall. Make sense? Okay, so we bevel the edges like this. Okay, and I do it to all of them. If I have a cube, they're all going to fit together, right? So I bevel the edges on all of them, and then I need to score and slip all of them. Okay, so what I do is I just score all of them and slip all of them at the same time. I'm going to try and put this together all in one shot, all in one day, in the next few minutes. So remember, good score marks are back and forth. I also want to let you know that if you're making score marks and if it's kind of crumbly, because you have to wait till they're like leather hard so they're holding their shape. If it's kind of crumbly when you're making these score marks, my suggestion is to make them, and then you can just take some water and just put a little bit of water in there, and it's going to seep into those score marks, and it's going to soften it up a little bit. So then if you go back over it, see those perfectly beautiful score marks that are being made? Ooh, so nice. So then you go back over them, and that water softened it a little bit, and it works really good. And then I also like to prep all of it at the same time, because then I can just go like this with my slip. You guys will have yours in a little pinch pot or whatever you use to hold your slip at your desk. So I'm just going to do all three sides, because any clay that touches clay needs what?
Slip.
Yeah, it needs to be scored and slipped. So now this beveled edge is going to fit super nice and clean, perfect, and with this other beveled edge. And I'm just going to work my way around, okay? There's the one in there. And I want to at least get the next wall in before I start doing some smoothing. And really my outside smoothing, because I'm doing this all in one sitting, I'm really going to wait until the end to really smooth out all the outside pieces. Okay, there's that. This is going to fit into there. And they just make really nice corner edges. You'll see it in just a minute. But you kind of want to squeeze those together, because those roughed up pieces that you made, you want to push those into each other to make sure that it makes a really good join. These are the pieces that often want to kind of come undone. It's because you're waiting for it to be leather hard, and then you're trying to like smooth and blend out the pieces. So if you don't take the necessary steps that I'm showing you to do it, you'll sometimes end up with pieces that fall apart as it starts to dry out because you didn't really join it very well. Okay, so, and it may seem like I did a lot of work in the beginning for this, to kind of set all this up, and you make your templates and you cut your templates out and you use a ruler, and it seems like a whole lot of work to really do that, but it's really, but then once you get to this part, then you're just like, you just put it all together and it fits perfectly. You don't have to remeasure things, so you're kind of doing all of your work in the beginning just so that this part is much easier. Okay. And like, notice how I'm kind of putting pressure on these walls a little bit, but because they're leather hard, they're staying very straight. Okay, that's the perk. That's the importance of waiting for it to be leather hard. So these should both have slip on the outside there. And it fits in perfectly because we did that beveled edge. So if you look on the inside here, you'll see where the slip has kind of squeezed out a little bit into the inside. I want this to be a really completely put together container that's not going to crack or break as it dries out. So I use like a modeling tool like this that kind of has a rounded edge, and I just come back in and kind of smooth out those corners. Works super well. I just go all the way around and just smooth out those corners so that they're really joined. Okay, and then I'm going to add the top part, and I want to completely make a hollowed box. That's my goal, is I'm making a hollowed box before I do anything else to it. Okay. Okay, we'll put this part right onto the top. Now, and I can put a pretty good amount of pressure on this as I pinch it together, because like I said, that beveled edge kind of helps support it. If I push on this on the top and the middle, it's hollowed, so you will bend it. But on the edges, it shouldn't be too bad because it's supported by that beveled edge. Okay, so now I have just like a hollowed box. You're gonna wanna go through and make sure that you have, neat edges. This is the time that you would do this. You wanna really clean everything up because this is finalizing the neatness part of everything. Okay, once you've gotten all that together, everything's perfectly in together, then you have to worry about your design ideas, if you're going to be carving any kind of designs in it, because it's leather hard, so now's a really great state to be able to carve it, and it's all put together so you know where things are going to match up and how they're going to line up and everything. So if you needed to do that, now would be the time to do it. I'm going to show you lid. So, it's a cube. Okay. Alright, let's talk about lids. I think that's going to be my bottom. So I have made on my template, if I'm trying to make this box, I actually drew on my template where I want my lid to be. We talked about in class how if it's just a straight, even if it's like a lid that is cut from the top, if it's straight across all the way around, there's nothing holding it onto your container. The lid will slide right off of that thing. So you need to make sure that at least somewhere or on like opposite corners or opposite sides, there's either like a little notch, or you kind of make a little edge, or you can cut them so that they have a little bit of, you know, some angles in them. So that helps keep this on the container. And that's the reason why there's those little notches, or, you know, I kind of tend to like design my designs around them. So I have this drawn on here where I want it, and I draw it on here on paper because it's a little easier to do. And then when I get it onto this part, then I can take a pencil, or you can take a pen tool or something, and you can draw right over the lines that you drew on your paper, and it'll make an indentation into the clay. Okay, and if I want it the same all the way around, then I will do that on all the sides using the same template so that it's even and it matches. Again, this is kind of like the difference between like something that looks really nice and polished and professional versus something that's just like, well, I'm going through the motions of doing the assignment, good enough. So once we have those and it's all together and you've cleaned it up the way you want it, I stopped cleaning mine because we don't have all day to do this. But
We have 3 minutes.
we have 3 minutes. So then you'll take this blade in here and you'll just cut. All along the lines that I just drew for my Okay, so then you pull that off, and that you might have to go in through, kind of adjust a little bit of the edges, and like inside you didn't get a chance to reach inside of there, so you might have to go through and you know, kind of fix that, because see how it's like not quite as nice of an edge here, not cleaned up a little, really making a solid joined piece. You might want to do that. Also be aware, if you do something like this, you don't want to move this around very much, these edges, because you want them to be able to fit right inside of that again. Oop, which direction? Right there. Does that make sense? So if you wanted to add things, if you wanted to add handles, you could add a handle to this. If you wanted, just by scoring and slipping a piece of something on top of it. So just make sure you score and slip it, and then you could use that as your handle. Okay? So if you wanted to add a foot, what I suggest is getting, whenever you cut out your pieces, cut some extra pieces out, like 1 or 2, or even if you have just the extra from your slab, after you cut out your slab, you have that extra pieces of the outside. Sometimes you can use those, but it makes it nice because you can dry them at the same time, and then have extra pieces to use for a foot if you're wanting a foot on there. So in what I would do is, you know, use that same template again, and instead of this time, you know, if you on the back you had the shape that you drew for the lid, this side, on the other side, do one for the foot. Just draw yourself a shape. So this is the kind of shape that I drew for mine. And it, just like you did with the lid, you can use this, use a pen tool or a carving tool, or even a pencil or something to cut this line, trace this onto your slab. I don't know if you can see that line traced on there. And you know, you can do this a couple of times. You know, you need to do this 4 times for or whatever many sides of the container that you have. In this case, 4. So you do that a bunch of times, and then you go and cut them out. Whenever you're drawing this, the important thing to know about this is to make sure that the foot on this side is the same height as the foot on this side, otherwise they won't match up the same and it'll be crooked. This piece and this piece are going to go upside down onto this. This same problem will happen as if you set the one on and then you set the one next to it. You're going to have this like extra piece sticking off the side. So you want to go ahead and bevel these edges too. If you're at home, you can use this tool, and I just set it to the side and just cut off that corner edge. Again, reminder, you don't want to cut off any length from that, but it kind of creates that shape that's like a beveled edge shape. And do that on both sides. If you're doing this again by hand at home, you can use that carving tool. If you're doing it here at school and you have access to the edge beveler, you can use the short end and cut those beveled edges. All right, and then you're going to score and slip the bottom. Again, the bottom here where you're going to attach these. As well as the container itself. You want to do those score marks. If it's kind of starting to dry out a little bit, you'll just want to take some water and spray that on those edges, and then this will attach here. Make sure you score and slip on the beveled edges where you're attaching them, and then you'll blend this out. Okay, so here's an example of what that would look like if it's all blended out there. And then once it's getting to be dry like this, you can turn it over and it will hold itself up. And then when it's fired, it kind of looks like this. So it gets to the bottom, looks like that, all four of them. And then it sits up on its feet.